Have you ever noticed that life keeps bringing you the same kind of pain, just in a different disguise? Different job, different relationship, different situation, same ending. You start to ask yourself, why does this keep happening to me? And eventually, is it me? What if I told you the pain isn't random? What if every heartbreak, every letdown, every time you felt dismissed, unworthy, or stuck was actually a lesson? And until you learn that lesson, life will keep sending it back, louder each time. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. Because the moment you understand what your pain is trying to teach you, you stop reliving it, you stop reacting, and you start choosing. In this video, we're going to break it down. Why emotional patterns repeat even when you try to move on. The hidden lesson most people never see. And a practical way to turn pain into clarity, starting today. You don't have to keep going in circles. You're not broken. You're repeating, and that means you can stop. Most people think pain just happens, that it's bad luck, or poor choices, or other people letting them down. But there's something deeper underneath it, a pattern. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. Think about this. You keep ending up in relationships where you feel unseen. You always take on too much at work until you burn out. You constantly find yourself walking away from things that matter the moment they get difficult. Different faces, different places, same outcome. That's not a coincidence, that's a cycle. And cycles don't break themselves, they repeat until you interrupt them. Here's what most people miss. The pain isn't punishing you. It's pointing at something unresolved, something you were never taught how to face. And every time you avoid it, life sends you another opportunity to try again. Another person who triggers the same wound, another situation that pushes the same button, another moment that feels way too familiar. This is the loop, and unless you name it, you'll stay in it. So in the next section, we're going to start there. You're going to name your pattern. Because once you can see it clearly, you can finally stop living in it blindly. Let's pause. If pain repeats, then what keeps repeating in your life? Really think about it. What's the feeling you always end up with no matter how things begin? Maybe it's abandonment. Maybe it's rejection. Maybe it's being the one who always gives more than they get. It's easy to focus on the surface, what they did, what you lost, what didn't work. But here's the truth. The pattern isn't in the details, it's in the emotional ending. So ask yourself this. What's the emotional outcome I keep coming back to? Do your relationships always end with you feeling disposable? Do new jobs start with excitement and end with burnout? Do you always shrink yourself when someone disapproves? This isn't judgment, it's clarity. And clarity is what breaks the cycle. Here's a simple prompt you can try. When I feel blank, I usually respond by blank. This often leads to blank. Write that down, say it out loud. Notice what fills in the blanks without overthinking. Because naming the pattern is the first real shift. Once you see it clearly, it stops hiding in your decisions. And once it stops hiding, it starts losing power. You've named your pattern. Now comes the question that matters most. Why does it exist? These emotional loops don't appear out of nowhere. They're rooted in something deeper, something old. Usually something you learned before you even knew it had a name. We are all shaped by repetition. Not just what happened to us, but what we had to believe to survive it. If love came with silence, you learned to stay quiet to feel safe. If affection came with conditions, you learned to perform, to please, to earn your place. And if you were hurt, but never helped, you learned to bury pain so deep you stopped noticing it was still running your life. These patterns are survival strategies, outdated defense mechanisms. They protected you once. But now, they trap you, because your nervous system doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in familiarity. And familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. That's why the same situations keep showing up, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because some part of you still thinks this is what you deserve, or what you're supposed to fix, or what love is supposed to feel like. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now to pause, to look, to unlearn. Because once you understand why the pattern exists, you can stop blaming yourself for living inside it. When people realize they're stuck in a pattern, they often feel two things at once. Relief, because now it makes sense, and panic, because now they feel like they have to fix everything. You don't. Breaking a pattern doesn't mean becoming a different person overnight. It just means becoming someone who can see it as it's happening. Awareness is the first disruption, but action is what rewrites the script. Here are 3 simple ways to begin without overwhelming yourself. 1. Ask different questions. When pain shows up again, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to show me?" It sounds small, but it's not. That one shift turns you from a victim of the cycle into a student of it. 2. Practice emotional pattern mapping. Set aside just 5 minutes each day. Write down what triggered you, how you responded, and what belief might be behind it. It doesn't have to be deep. It just has to be honest. They ignored my message, which means I felt unimportant, which means I believed I don't matter unless I'm needed. Patterns lose power when they're tracked, because what you can observe, you can change. 3. Slow the response. When you feel that old pain rise up, the urge to chase, to shut down, to lash out, pause. Even just a breath. That pause is the wedge. It's where the old pattern ends and the new one has a chance to begin. Don't try to do everything at once. This isn't about fixing yourself. You're not broken. This is about choosing moment by moment not to replay the same old scene just because it's the one you know by heart. There's something most people don't tell you about healing. It doesn't just change you, it changes your role in everyone else's story too. And not everyone will like that. When you stop chasing people who never chose you, they may call you cold. When you start setting boundaries where there were none, some will say you've changed. And they're right, you have. Because healing isn't just soft and quiet, sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it means saying no. Sometimes it means walking away from people, places, or patterns you once thought you couldn't live without. Growth is beautiful, but it can also be lonely. You may feel misunderstood, you may question yourself. You may want to go back to the familiar just to feel accepted again. But hear this clearly. Outgrowing your pain is not betrayal, it's permission. You are allowed to become someone who no longer fits inside the version of you that was built around survival. You are allowed to outgrow being the fixer, the peacekeeper, the silent one, the one who always absorbs the blame. Some people will fall away, others will rise to meet the new version of you. But the most important part is this: you don't owe anyone a version of yourself that you've already healed past. When you finally break the pattern, life doesn't explode into fireworks. It gets quiet. You start noticing things that used to feel like home don't anymore. The chaos that once felt normal now feels exhausting. The people who needed you to stay small start fading away. And something strange happens. You stop craving the things that hurt you. You no longer need to prove your worth. You stop chasing apologies. You don't rehearse arguments in your head anymore. Instead, you respond slower. You breathe deeper. You feel steady, even when life isn't. That's peace, not perfection, not constant happiness, just the absence of urgency. Just the feeling of being safe in your own presence. Of knowing that pain might still visit, but you don't live there anymore. You've seen the pattern. You've faced it. You've unlearned it, and in its place, there's space. For calm, for connection, for a version of you that doesn't have to keep surviving, because healing isn't becoming someone new. It's becoming who you were before the pattern took over, and now you're free to meet that version of yourself again. If this video brought clarity to something you've been carrying, leave a comment below. What's one pattern you're ready to break? Or one belief you're finally ready to let go of? You're not alone in this. And if you want more content like this, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of the conversation.